Nate. So we're doing this for remembrance of 9/11. Do you remember 9/11?
Vividly. I remember I had just gotten to Israel, September 11th, 2001. I'd probably been there for maybe a month, my first time, thousands of miles away from home. And it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and somebody walked into the study hall and said, "The towers have been hit." And everybody looked at him like he was insane. He had never imagined the towers. I mean, that was America, the towers being hit. And everybody left the study hall. They went to get their phones to try to find out if their family members are okay, if they know somebody. They had some friends that worked there, and it never really hit. You know, when you talk to family members that were here and they watched, my brother, he remembers watching from across the water in Far Rockaway, and he was explaining to me how you saw the smoke and then it actually came even over the water. It was a surreal day. That's something you don't forget exactly where you were at the time that it happened. Very interesting story happened to me about a year after that, also in Israel. I bumped into a kid that was in my class in 12th grade, and he looked very religious. Now, this kid was kicked out of high school, a very religious high school, because he wasn't that religious. So I found it strange. I asked him what happened. He said, "You know why I got kicked out of high school?" I said, "Why?" He says, "Because I never came to prayers on time." "You know why I'm here now?" I said, "Why?" He says, "Because I can never wake up on time." I was working on one of the floors in the tower that was hit, and he wasn't there. He didn't come. He didn't show up at 9 o'clock or whatever it was. And by the time he woke up, it was a life-altering moment for him. He picked up himself up, moved to Israel, and he's still there now studying.
Wow. When did you see the actual footage on TV?
You're gonna laugh at me. Probably 6 months later, the next time I
Wow.
came back to the States. But I mean, you heard about it. You knew people. We've had family friends that worked there. I have a close neighbor that her father died in this. It's hit home in so many ways, and even if you didn't know somebody personally, even our boss, Kenny Rosenberg, was there at the time at the scene. A lot of the people that you deal with that were first responders were there to try to help at the time.
Prior to the tragedy that happened, had you ever visited the observatory on the top floor?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't been there since, though.
Okay, I was just gonna ask, have you visited the memorial site?
No.
Okay. In what ways do you keep the memory alive of what happened that tragic date?
I mean, just think about it. Anytime you get on a flight and you're sitting online for an hour and a half till you get through security, that's all September 11th. Before that, there was nothing. You went to Israel, and that was like the most questions you would get. Who packed your stuff? That was like a normal when you're going to Israel, because they were so scared from everything that they're dealing with on that end. But in America, you go fly to Chicago to visit my grandparents, you never had to wait online for anything. And now every single time, that's a reminder. The kids that are sitting in line, they think that's normal, but it wasn't always normal.
How old were you when this happened?
I don't remember. You're asking me something. You're trying to get an age out of here. I was 20.
Okay, you were very young. Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
9/11/2001. I was living in the East Village on East 5th Street. And around sometime that morning, I heard a big bang, that sort of like shook us a little bit. And, about 2 hours later, we put on the TV and we saw the planes flying in World Trade Center. People jumping out of the building and fire trucks going down there. None of us really knew what happened right away. It took some time. And around 9:30, we saw 9:30 or 10 o'clock, we saw people coming up from downtown, coming from the World Trade Center, and they were all covered in white dust, which I figured it was plastic or whatever was in the building after the explosion. It was a mess. People were holding on to each other. You know, they were very upset. It wasn't a pretty sight to see, but you know, we went downstairs and you know, helped the people as we could. You know, giving them directions. They didn't seem to know where they were at. You know, so, and that's what basically was it. You know, the rest of it we got from the news, and what could I say? It was a very sad sight.
Sam, do you remember September 11th?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell us where you were that day when the planes crashed into the towers?
2 days before that, my parents moved to DR. And I remember my mom telling me that we were supposed to fly sometime around that day, but she had to change the plan because my grandmother was sick. So lucky me, I was able to make it before that happened. However, I do remember my mom telling me that that day she received a phone call from most of my family members who were here saying that they knew people who were working around that area that lost their life. Others were very, very injured and sick. We did know a few of our neighbors who had family members, and it was a very chaotic day, even though I was in another country, because you know, a lot of the people in the neighborhood I used to live had some either family member or friend who was near that area at that time. I do remember also my mom telling me how a lot of the friends that she had here had to go pick up their kids at daycare. A lot of them were crying a lot. Also, other people that were working had to walk to their house because there was no taxis passing through the bridges. If you was going uptown, then you was supposed to walk to your house, and if you was downtown, you had to take a cab, but it would leave you at a certain stop and then you would have to walk home. It was a very long day, and for a couple days after that, we were very sad for the people who we knew and for the people who we lost.
Had you prior to that ever visited the observatory on the top floor of one of the towers?
Yes, I have. I went a little, I would say like about 6 months ago.
So you went after the tragedy.
I went after
but
that.
Prior to the tragedy, had you ever visited?
Yes, I did. My dad used to take us around to visit and see like the stuff that were around there. I know there was a cemetery around there. My dad used to walk us around the area. We would stop right in front of the cemetery and look towards the towers and stuff like that. But I think even though after that, it looks still completely different, and it will never look the same.
Right. How do you feel that that day, that tragic date, impacted us the most now as Americans?
I think that after 9/11, our lives did change a lot, especially for us, you know, the low income areas and stuff like that, because we, you know, the times we're living, there is this, let me see how I can say that.
Start now. My name is Louise Byron, and I remember 9/11. I remember they had a building blown up downtown, and so many people died, and some of us lost our families down there. And you bring it up now, thinking about it. It was so horrible. They could have communicated with each other, and it wouldn't have been no bombing down there. It was a waste of time.